Licensing Board meeting for Tuesday, November 7th, 2023. Everyone sign in. I'll take roll. Mr. Armstrong.
Present.
Mr. Reeves. Mr. Panitsky. Mr. Newber.
Here.
Mr. Dietrich.
Here.
Mr. Ziwi.
Here.
Mr. Sessler. Mr. Bretz. Mr. Schaaf.
Here.
Mr. Hollern. Mr. Collins.
Here.
Mr. Grego. Roll call has been taken. You were all notified electronically of the previous meeting minutes from October. Take a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion by Todd Dietrich, second by Doug Armstrong. Is there any questions on the motion? Being that there's none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now we'll move on to the public comment section of the agenda. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone for public comment? Anyone for public comment? Being that there's none, we'll move on from public comment. There's no secretary report this month, so we'll move on to correspondence. Samuel Savage submitted his application for a journeyman electrician in October. The board tabled making a decision on his application and requested additional information. Mr. Savage has submitted the information requested and has been forwarded to the board. I guess we can move that into old business. We can move right into that and discuss Mr. Savage's request. Yes. I did have a question about, he submitted something from Penn Foster, maybe the electrical members of this board can, is Penn Foster an accredited educational program for electrician?
I mean, I was expecting to see a diploma from NJATC. Did you receive anything like that?
That's what we requested though, right? A copy of the diploma?
Well,
That's what I'm,
Well, proof of the apprenticeship or the education, and for this letter, that bottom to last paragraph there, if they would have put a verification, a DOL verification or a DOL certified certification number or something verifying that program was certified, I wouldn't have a problem with this. But I think to your point, TJ, I could write this letter.
Right.
I could generate this.
They're just stating
Here we go again.
it's registered, doesn't say anybody who completed the program. It's also dated 2010.
well, that's fine if he completed it in 2010, but
can you go back up there again, Chrissy?
If I'm not mistaken, we were trying to establish if we were gonna have reciprocity with what he currently has in Michigan, right?
well, that would be with the master's license.
Right.
He's not asking for a master's, he's asking for a journeyman, isn't that correct?
Since he is currently a union member.
But he didn't, he still has not provided the information that we requested.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to get up to speed here.
Yeah, yeah.
Make
yeah,
sure
yeah.
that,
Well, I took your same tack because I just turned to the page on return privilege that's in the, our rules.
Ordinance.
Yeah, in the ordinance. And that's what I was looking at too, the return privilege from the city of Detroit or Ann Arbor or wherever that is. I don't think we have that. But to the rest of everyone's point, I don't think he's fulfilled what we've asked him to do, is prove that he's had the apprenticeship and served the necessary time through an apprenticeship and completed an apprenticeship, because I didn't see anything that said that he completed. I didn't see a diploma or certificate. I see a lot of letters, but usually there's some official document from the governing board in that state that, or through the Department of Labor that states that.
When you look back at the cards he's photocopied in here.
This is from Ken Foster as well, and this is one of the letters that he sent me, after I contacted him, after the meeting.
What's the date on that letter?
This is, October 16th. This was after the board meeting.
So if you read there, this student will receive their diploma in the near future via the U.S. mail. Why they didn't just attach a copy of that is beyond me. Because if they attach that diploma or that certification, and is that an approved?
I don't think it's an approved program, because they would put it on there, it just says it's inscribed.
It must be an
If I'm
on.
not mistaken, don't you get a certificate from the Department of Labor also?
Yes,
Well, you-
yes.
you should
Our-
get-
Our apprentices do get 2 diplomas, one from the state of Pennsylvania, one from the national.
We do too.
I mean, I look at it, this certificate that's on the screen here, I look at that the same as I would look at Triangle Tech. You follow where I'm going with that? It's
Yes.
not, there's nothing in there that says that he was a registered apprentice in the state of Michigan.
He completed a program, but it's not a state approved or Department of Labor.
Correct.
There is a letter here, it's from 2010, saying it's a U.S. Department of Labor apprenticeship in Michigan.
Well, that was on the screen, and Doug
Christie,
made that comment.
Would you slide that back to that blue card?
But if that's the case, there should be a certificate or something
Right
that
there.
it's,
I was just looking to see if there was something on that certified that program, and I don't see it.
Going back to the letter from Penn Foster Workforce Development, it says in the letter that it's approved by the U.S. Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship in Michigan, so there should be a certificate from the state of Michigan that says this person completed the, when I completed my apprenticeship, the state of Pennsylvania sent me a certificate that said you've completed the state-approved apprenticeship program.
Right.
So he should provide that, that certificate in order to be able to be eligible to take the exam. Does everyone agree with that?
So you're saying you want something from the state, not from the school that he attended?
Correct. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, we want a certified credential.
From the
None of
state.
this is a certified credential. You
Let-
could do this in
Let,
Photoshop.
let me rephrase it. He has to either provide a state document from the state of Michigan that says he, finished the program, the apprenticeship, or from the U.S. Department of Labor.
Right.
Does that make sense to everyone?
Or from Pennsylvania, because this school is in Scranton.
Okay, or, yeah,
I kind of got twisted there because a lot of his papers said Detroit or Michigan, and this is Pennsylvania.
I imagine that this schooling was maybe online.
yeah, that's what I was.
Okay.
But it says the DOL Office of Apprenticeship can verify Jerry's registration status.
Well, he's registered, he hasn't,
Call the number below.
he's registered with it, but it doesn't say he's completed the program or has a certificate of it.
Right.
Right, correct. So. I don't-
Wait a second, can you scroll back down? One more. All right. All right, well, I just still don't have a diploma, I guess.
Just so I'm sure, when I'm asking, when I contact him, you're looking for a diploma from the U.S. Department of Labor or the state of Michigan?
Or the state of Pennsylvania.
State of Michigan.
Any of the three. It will be a DOL document.
So something stating that it's a deal, okay.
Everyone satisfied with that?
Yes.
Motion to table this request until a later date.
Second.
Second by Todd Dietrich. Any questions on the motion? Any questions on the motion? Being that there's none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. This application is tabled for request for information. Okay. I think someone missed the public comment section. If there's no objection, I'll move back to the public comment section.
We're still working.
She,
This is Jacqueline
oh,
Frye.
oh,
She is our planning.
yeah. I couldn't see her behind. Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, we'll move into new business. Review and approve electrical applications. Eric Walker, master electrician.
Will you entertain questions?
Why don't we ask Mr. Walker? Mr. Walker, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium, please. It'll just save us some time. Yes. It'll save you time and us time, so. Okay, you're employed by Erie Insurance,
Yes, sir.
and where did you work prior to that?
I worked for JEJ Resources for nearly 16 years.
And how long have you been at Erie Insurance?
Going on 19, 20 months, since March 21st of last year.
And how long have you had a journeyman electrician's license?
I do not hold a journeyman electrician's license currently.
Oh, okay. I thought it said, or maybe I read it wrong.
I had passed the NASPLA journeyman's exam to get a journeyman's license from one of the 13 accredited states, but I have not pursued that I would just have to send them a couple $100 to get a journeyman's license, having passed that NASPLA exam.
When did you take and pass that exam?
The exact date, it was last year.
That's okay, we don't need exact date. But you were told you could take the journeyman's exam by passing that, or you did pass the journeyman's exam?
I passed the NASPLA journeyman's exam to get a journeyman's license in a different jurisdiction. I just haven't paid for that licensing. Washington D.C. is one of the.
Okay. This Mr. Beers that is your verifier,
Yes, sir.
he's also an employee at Erie Insurance?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the NASPLA exam was back in April 27, but the G16 master electrician exam that I had passed was March 23rd of last year.
Well, you were in the audience for part of the conversation, so I gotta go back in your timeline. Have you ever served an apprenticeship?
No, sir.
And had you ever attended a vocational school for the electrical industry or
No,
any
sir.
other schooling for that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Are you currently registered as an apprentice under Mr. Beers'
No, sir.
license? I'm looking at your resume. Can you explain briefly what they do at JEG or JAJ Resources?
JEJ Resources is a commercial and industrial electrical contractor. Initially, when I started working for them, it is my dad's company. We primarily did like gas stations, explosion-proof, restaurants, grocery stores, and then I'm not sure of the exact date, but we transitioned into hospitality and apartment buildings. And that's for probably the last 10 years of my time there. Let me see here. Since 2013, we had, what's
Is that
that?
the old Jade?
No, sir. JEJ Resources. It used to be Walker Electric, and he was doing the country fairs locally back when it was that company. But then at JEJ Resources is when I started working for my dad. And we focused on gas stations, and like I had said, up until 2013, that's when we transitioned into apartment buildings and hospitality. And shortly after taking on those projects, I started running them for him, dealing with the inspectors and actually being the foreman electrician on the projects for my last 8 years at the company. And I had included like a letter of reference from one of the inspectors up in the Buffalo area. He actually works for the town of Amherst, and he was one of the inspectors I had dealt with, and he had wrote in a letter of recommendation.
As I look at this, all the information and this is my opinion, but as I look at this, I see you've got great education, great on-the-job training, you've got a lot of things. However, there are conditions in order to sit for these various tests. And it would be like you going for a doctorate. If you don't have an undergraduate degree, if you don't have a master's degree. Even though you could pass the test, nobody's gonna allow you to do that. That's my opinion.
I appreciate that.
How were you able to take this test? The ICC?
Anyone can take an exam if they can, he didn't necessarily take the exam that's required for this jurisdiction. I'm not sure. It's the correct exam? Okay. But anyone can sign up to take, as long as the jurisdiction allows it, you know, they'll recognize it. Like, he took the exam, but we don't, it didn't go through the code office. You follow what I'm saying? So, I mean,
It was my intention to take those exams to show my qualifications and my knowledge.
I got you.
And in no way am I asking to not have to take the exam under the city. I just wanted to show that I do qualify for that position, and I do have the knowledge to fill those shoes.
Right. The way that the ordinance is written, though, that you must, in order to take the master electrician's exam, you must be under the employ of a master electrician for the required period of time. That's the hang point about what you're asking for. I don't, based on your experience and looking through your credentials, I would say that you would be eligible to take the journeyman exam, and from that point forward, you could be registered under Mr. Beer's master's license, and you could complete the amount of time necessary to be eligible under the ordinance to take the exam.
Understood?
I think that would be a reasonable,
Yeah, that would be my recommendation as well, to apply for and get the journeyman's license and complete the required time in order to get the master's.
It's unfortunate, you're not the first person to stand in front of us who has been in this situation.
Yeah. No, I'm not asking for special treatment or anything. I just wanted consideration, and it doesn't make sense for me at this point in my career to go through an apprenticeship, and that's why I wanted to be here to answer any questions.
Well, they just recommended that you not go through an apprenticeship, that you
Correct.
take the journeyman's test and
And-
then commit to being a journeyman for the required amount of hours, and then you'll be allowed to take the master's electrician's test.
Understood.
You don't want to do that either? You just want to go straight to master?
No, I accept that proposal. I would be willing to go sit for the journeyman's I would be willing to go sit for the journeyman exam to fulfill that requirement, and then to meet the hour requirement under Brian. My current supervisor is here with me as well.
Eric, just to let you know, that's 4 years, 8,000 hours.
Correct.
Where you, do a journeyman before you go to upgrade to master.
Versus 8 years.
Oh, 13, because the 5-year apprenticeship.
I just had a few questions before, you make a decision.
okay.
If he has to do 4 years, are we going to accept his current master exam that he has already taken? In 4 years, are we going to accept that, or is he going to have to take the exam again?
I think you should take the exam again because the code will change
Okay,
at least once.
okay. And if you're going to allow him to take the journeyman exam, is he going to have to pay the 4 years as an apprentice fee as well?
That's up to the code office.
It will be up to you guys.
Oh, well,
What we do, we gotta be pretty consistent, you know, our guys did all this stuff. Can't just, open the floodgates for people to kind of jump in.
I
Well,
agree.
if we can, for clarity, the business at hand is he's approached us for a master's. So I'm gonna make a motion that we reject that, so that we can clear that from the table, and then whatever transcribes after that, so be it. So I'm making the motion to reject him for the masters, being able to take the masters.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Mr. Ziwi. Any questions on the motion? Any questions on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Now, we can discuss the other topic.
Well, I think the recommendation was for Mr. Walker to take the test and apply for the journeyman's license.
Well, I'd like to hear what Mr. Ziwi has to say,
Well,
because he was getting to a point. I just want to hear what he was.
we would have to determine that we would agree on the level of education that he's had so far. Because that's what the ordinance says. I guess that's totally up to us. And then based on his time, we felt the education was comparable to a apprenticeship program, that he had the time, then he could be approved to take the journeyman test.
Well, and I gotta be honest with you, when I looked at this, I looked solely from the perspective of master's test. And as I reviewed that, I said, well, I don't see anything with the apprenticeship or building trades journeyman, any of those credentials. He's got a background, he's got a lot of this stuff there. He's got this master's test, but he doesn't fulfill some of our core obligations to sit for this. So I didn't come in prepared to say, okay, we're gonna shut you down here, but here's what you can do.
Yeah, I think that if you would like to take the journeyman test, that you should fill out the application for that, and we would review it at that time as an item on the agenda.
It's the same application.
Identical?
Yes.
Do you have any trade schooling, formal?
No, sir.
What's in the ordinance as far as accepted? $800?
Yeah, you gotta have.
Yeah, it says that you have to have a level of education comparable to an apprentice program.
I demonstrated that level of education by passing those exams.
No, it's not the same.
Yeah.
I could sit down and I'm a pretty sharp guy, I can study a book. But when you get out to the real world, you gotta have that in the field, and that book knowledge. I'm not taking anything away from you for passing that master's test. Don't read more into that than what I'm saying. But it's like if you would go sit for a doctorate, yeah, you've gotta have the preliminaries in place before you can do that. I didn't write the ordinance.
I understand, and it's under my understanding that exceptions have been made in the past to electricians and individuals under this board. It's my understanding that current license holders have not fulfilled that apprenticeship obligation in the past. I know I am not those people. However, considerations have been made, and I am just asking for a consideration.
What's the jurisdiction that your masters have been granted in?
It hasn't.
So you don't have a master's?
No, but that is already off the table. I thought we were talking about journeymans at this point.
Well, you're the one who came back to the fact that you've passed your master's, so you ought to be able to sit for the journeyman's.
That it showed my knowledge and education. That it qualified me for an exam. That's why I brought that up.
Anytime we've done this in the past, it's always been someone like a different local or something like that that's had the equivalent training and time.
Yes, and the issue then becomes return privilege, which he doesn't have a jurisdiction for return privilege. He's got a license that's, well, he's got the ability to get a license that's yet to be issued.
As far as granting these before, we haven't been around for a year yet, this board. So I don't know what exceptions we've made.
I don't know the track record of your board in front of me. However, I was referring to past licensing boards in the same situation.
Well, I was on that board too, and I don't
Yeah.
recall any then either.
Okay.
We were pretty, in my opinion, stricter before than we are now.
If you want to go back to past review boards, I can tell you you'd be turned down for the journeymans as well.
Understood.
Because you did not serve as an apprentice here in town. And if you didn't get a license. And it didn't matter if you passed the journeyman's test somewhere else. Again, my opinion, my recommendation would be to apply for journeyman's, for the ability to take the journeyman's test. If you're looking for action on what you've submitted today, you will not like my motion.
I understand. So you want me to reapply for the journeyman test, and then I still won't have my apprenticeship next month. So forecasting that, the determination would be denied as well.
I don't know that.
I don't know that either. I mean, it would be,
I would look at everything you submitted in a different way. I looked at it strictly from a master's point of view, not from, okay, what else are we gonna do? And I apologize for not looking at it the way you're now presenting.
Well,
What?
the data is the same, if you could reframe your mind.
Without having all of that in a period of time to review that, that's why I said, you don't want me to make a decision on that right now. But apparently you do.
I'm not asking for a decision at this moment. That is a notarized piece of paper with the journeyman or master check mark, therefore you cannot make a decision on that at this time. I don't have that notarized application for journeyman in front of you. I was just forecasting the next month's decision after the journeyman application is in front of you with these apprenticeship questions that are being asked of me. I'm not gonna be able to fulfill a multi-year apprenticeship within 1 month.
the part where you're gonna get hung up here is on the application itself. Because if, Christie, can you go to page 7 of the application? Is that 7? Or am I on the wrong page? Right there. Scroll down a little more, please. The application requirements, the verifier's statement on the job requirements of verification, 3 letters of personal reference, you have that. Proof of your GED, you have that. Updated resume showing your employment, but the last line item, certificate of completion of 578 hours of classroom instruction in electrical theory and National Electrical Code. That one, that's the one you don't have.
Correct.
Which is possibly the most important one.
You may, but please come up to the podium. And also, please identify who you are.
Yeah, I'm Brian Beers, so I'm the master that signed that document. So I've worked at Erie Insurance for 16 years. I've hired multiple guys. I have 2 other masters that work for me, which is rare for any maintenance facility to even have 1 master, let alone 3. I have 2 other in the company that I've worked with, came through our group. We complete some highly challenging work. We have some highly challenged equipment that even most wouldn't understand if they had 20, 30 years of experience to walk in there and understand it. Eric has been able to demonstrate those abilities. I understand the criteria of the schooling, but I think we fall into an era where that doesn't always apply, because prior to the last 8 or 12 years, there was a window where people didn't have that opportunity, depending where you came from, where you worked. It doesn't mean you're a bad electrician. It just means that wasn't offered to you at your place of business. So, at Erie, we do send guys to the apprenticeship now. I have a guy in the apprenticeship now, registered as an apprentice. But to send Eric back through that process, that's a paid process. We'll pay for it. His hourly time, it really doesn't benefit him or us. And I think that prior to that, the schooling was a benchmark to say, okay, you've completed a 4 or 5 year apprenticeship for the union guys, you're qualified. But in the lapse of that, if you could prove your 8,000 hours and pass an exam, that was the other qualification. So I think that in my experience with here and other municipalities that I've worked for in the past, he meets that 8,000 hour requirement and has passed the exam. So I think to take him back through that process and say you need to now go through a 4-year apprenticeship just to say you have the work experience of 8,000 hours and you've worked under somebody, I don't see the value in that for anybody, really. Erie Insurance, Eric, or your team as well. So I think I did sign off on all those qualifications. And I don't take that lightly. I wouldn't do that for many. I wouldn't do that for my apprentice that's on my staff right now that's going to be approaching this bench in 2 years. So there's just a different level of knowledge, and I think Eric's been able to demonstrate that at our facility, which others can't. And then the other benchmark too is there's a lot of working electricians. I've worked with a lot here in town. I've worked with them in other municipalities. If they walked into that exam, they would not pass. They wouldn't pass the journeyman's exam. They definitely wouldn't pass the master's exam. So I think that having those benchmarks, again, even for him to go back and take the journeyman's exam after he's already completed the master's, what's the validity to that? He's already has a doctorate, and you're asking him to get a bachelor's degree. So it's kind of, to me, to go backwards, and not that Erie won't provide, and if it's a money thing, you want the money for the 4 years that he should have been an apprentice here, Erie's going to pay that. It's not going to be an issue. So again, I just don't want to waste the time. The reason we came to the board was he took these exams prior to coming to Erie. I didn't rush right in here. I wanted to be able to say, hey, Eric does qualify. So to say that he could be a journeyman, get the card, work for me for the other 2 years or 2.5 years, and then if he needs to retake the master's exam, I'm comfortable with that, and I think he would be as well. But to go back and just repeat all these steps, I don't really see the point in it. I think he can prove his time, prove his work history. He has multiple letters of recommendation, 2 master verifiers. I really don't know what we gain from that other than a lot of time and a lot of expense.
Yeah, and it's a good point you bring up, and the problem is, you can see that last requirement is 578 hours of classroom time.
Sure.
Mr. Walker has an impressive work history, and that's the rub there.
Right. You're probably seeing that a lot with guys. I mean, we're similar in age. I'm probably a few years older than him, but I know there was a lot of guys that I worked with in the past. They didn't have those opportunities. I was fortunate to work for a larger company out west that put me through that apprenticeship right out of the gate. But if there was a large gap where you were either union to get that journeyman's license or you waited your hours and took the exam to prove it. So, like I said, I was fortunate to work for a company that had that opportunity, but not all do. And I think you're probably seeing a lot of that with the locals and also people that maybe didn't work in the city of Erie because it wasn't a requirement. If you work in Meadville, Edinburgh, these other municipalities, a lot of those contractors, they don't want to work here. They're like, they don't want to jump through the hoops to get there. They'll take that outside work. So.
And going back to what you said about working with the unions, I mean, this is a diversified board. It's not all just union people up here.
I wasn't breaking that out to say
well,
there's
I'm
a
just
difference.
saying there's opportunities in both worlds to do classroom and apprenticeship training.
Now, but if you went back 15 years, the IEC wasn't as big as it is now. Now, most non-union contractors, they enroll their guys into it right away. And that's because they know that's the benchmark to get them to that journeyman's license. But prior to that, 15 years ago, those opportunities weren't there, and it was a large expense to a smaller company. But I don't think that disqualifies to say that person's not a good electrician because he didn't go through an apprenticeship.
Right.
There's a lot of self-taught electricians. I worked for somebody. Actually, that's how I got into this role. I worked for my uncle for 10 years as a young kid, learning the basics, and he was self-taught. And he could probably pass any exam and also do any work that a lot of guys couldn't. So I think having that benchmark makes it very challenging to qualify people unless you just started in the trade within the last 12 years.
Eric, will you entertain a couple of questions?
Yes, sir.
The
Thank
company, the company you work for, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think
You
I'm
prompted
fine.
me to ask a question. Company you worked for previously, the JE,
Jay.
that was your company?
That was my father's company.
Okay. Was he a master electrician?
He is a master electrician registered with the state of Ohio.
Uh-huh. I mean, so you've worked under, this is why I told you don't want my answer right now, because I didn't have time to look at this. But there's opportunities for you, if you review and you pick out the various things, you can start checking stuff off. We're not at liberty to do that at this point. You've approached us for a master's license. You don't meet it. Even though you've got one, you don't meet the criteria as this code calls out. There are things that could be done if you served under a licensed master journeyman or a master electrician. So you worked in the field for somebody that could then verify some of this stuff. Does it get you around the 500 hours? No, but I don't have time. I haven't had time to look at your personal situation other than from what you applied for, and that was a master's, and you heard what I said about that.
Yes, sir.
You're looking to do something else differently now and apply for a journeyman's. I would still suggest that you do that. You may look at it as a waste of time, but we would review that on its own merits. Does that cover the 578 hours? I don't know, I haven't looked at you that close. I just looked at you from a master standpoint. I'm not here to turn people away. If we can work with you and make things happen, I want to do that. We want qualified, competent people in the trades. But to your point, we're here to dot the i's and cross the t's so that the next people down the line don't just get out of jail free card. We've got to do our due diligence. And for what you've applied for, no. The next step, I would strongly suggest that you apply for the journeyman's license. I can't make that a board recommendation, motion, and you might want to work with Andy to make sure the things are the way they need to be.
Understood.
Thank you.
I understand what Mr. Beers is saying. My biggest problem about the application is you have to have the classroom hours. That's the way it's always been. I had to do that. That's just what the ordinance says. The ordinance says is when there's an apprenticeship program available, you have to take the hour, you have to take the classes. We can't circumvent what the ordinance says. It's been that way for 100 years or however long it's been.
Many years.
Back when I was working for my dad, he had invested in Mike Holt's training videos, and I have spent well over 578 hours in those videos. It is not an accredited apprenticeship program. However, it is classroom and it is learning. It's just not through the ICC or the IEC. However, I have spent thousands of hours watching these videos and code updates and code changes and theory videos, and that was his way of classroom teaching.
Can I ask you a question for my own curiosity? Mr. Beers said that there's 3 master electricians that are employed at Erie Insurance?
Actually, 5 total.
5?
2 work under me, and then I have 2 others that have moved on to other roles.
So I'm just curious to know what your motivation is to get a master's. If there's 5 masters that work there, you're not registered under any of them. What's your motivation for that? Just for my own personal curiosity.
No, I respect that, and the job descriptions for moving forward in the company of Erie Insurance have requirements to hold a master electrician's license or a boilermaker license to move into these higher positions. And at this current juncture, without a master license, I can't move forward in any of those job roles.
I can speak again, if you guys don't mind. That was all prompted by me. So I interviewed her 2 years ago, and in the interview, I always ask the question, do you have a journeyman's license? It's not required because we used to require it, but that really limits you to guys that are only have worked in the city of Erie. So we found that we need a larger reach, a larger net to gather the talent we want. So we've removed that as a preference. In my interview, I'll ask, do you have a license? If the answer is yes or no, will you get one? Or will you entertain getting one? Will you do the requirements? Most guys say yes. If they have one, which he said, yeah, I've worked as a journeyman for these years, I said, well, if you have a license, would you pursue a master's license? Erie is committed to continued education. So I didn't have a master's license when I went there. I didn't need one, but they pushed me to go get that. Now Erie's work is under my master's license. The other 2 guys there had them previously. One guy did go get it on his own. So I have another guy that I'm pushing. He's been a journeyman for 10 years. I'm like, hey, take that next step. We're committed to continuing education. We send these guys to multiple schools. Are they going to be the school that you want that's going to take them the first year through basic theory all the way back, which he already knows that stuff? No, but they're going to be UPS school. They're going to be generator schools. They're going to be high-end electrical schools that we send guys to Arizona for generator schools. So we invest in our guys. We continue to push them for education. There's no advantage to him having that license. He's never going to use it as long as I'm there because my insurance, my license is stuck to Erie Insurance for the city. But the advantage would be for him to show, hey, I did take that step. You asked for a journeyman's. He went out on his own before he worked for me and went and said, hey, I can pass a journeyman's. Not only did I pass that, I passed the master's. So he really already showed that, hey, I have the ability, I have the experience and the ability to pass the exams. And again, I've worked with a lot of guys. I know there's a lot of guys that have been doing this for 20 years. If you send them in that exam room, they're going to fail miserably. And I know guys that have taken it 4 or 5 times and still fail. So I don't think you can say this is the only benchmark to qualifying somebody's experience, honestly.
I get what you're saying, but isn't that kind of contradicting what Erie Insurance is saying? In order for you to meet
It's
this
a preference.
level.
So in that job description he's referring, it's a preference. But if you come to me and you're applying for a job and Mr. Newber's applying for the same job and he took the master's exam, that's going to carry a lot more weight and passed it than you having a journeyman's license. So if I'm looking at the 2 of you, I'm going to say this guy took the next step. He's also documented his ability to pass that exam. So again, it's a competitive market. So we want to attract the best, and we also want them to continue to grow through our process.
So that's not a rule there.
No,
it's not a rule. It's a recommendation.
It's a preference on the next level. So our job description will be written as journeyman's license required, master's license preferred to get to that next level of his career.
Right. I'm just curious because even though you guys are kind of your own world, I understand that. But technically, by the way the law is written, he has to be registered as an apprentice if he's touching anything electrical, minus, whatever small fixture change or whatever's allowed. I'm not an electrician, so, but minor maintenance. If you guys are, changing out service panels or something like that, I mean, he has to be registered anyway.
And that's why we're here, because that process is here now. So We didn't do it last year, but it doesn't make sense for me to register him as an apprentice, send him to school for 4 years to say, take the test that you already passed 5 years ago. You know, that to me just seems like a big waste of his time, Erie Insurance's money, and we're trying to avoid that. So that's why we came here. If you want us to go back and reprocess, and again, like Christy said, the application's the same, other than the small piece at the bottom, we can do that, and then have him reapply as a journeyman, if that's the motion you guys want to make.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
it's not up to us to, you know, you present to us what you want, it's not up to us to tell you, like, what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I hired a guy, I'd have to do exactly what this says. I couldn't just bring him in and want him to take a journeyman test if he just came in. He'd have to work his time or go to school. So if we do that for other contractors and other people, I feel like, you know, we're gonna set a precedent that all of a sudden, anybody that works for a private company can come in and get a license. And that's kind of not what it's all about. We try to go into these rules the best that we can.
Sure.
You know, you say you watch those Mike Cole videos and stuff. I mean, I could watch videos on heart surgery and say I know how to do heart surgery, but yet I can't do it. You know, we try to be professional, and you know, to be professional, I feel that we have to, you know, go by the rules to be professional, and we can't just keep making changes to the rules.
Sure. So at this point, that 578 hours is going to be a sticking point
We hold
until we
everybody
get
to
there.
that.
What's that?
We pretty much hold everybody to that.
Okay.
Do you have any certificates or stating that he did take some classes at Erie Insurance, allowed him to take?
We do. He's taken a lot of classes at Erie Insurance, a lot of professional classes. He's taken all the safety classes, the NFPA classes. But as far as a formal training to say, there's not 578 hours in the last 2 years, but he has taken classes, yes.
Do they have certificates stating that? It's an 8-hour course, whatever?
Some, not most, but some do, yes. I mean, the art flash training, you get a certificate.
Well,
for that,
I
yeah.
would think that would help you with your hours.
If you went back and checked on that stuff, I mean, if you had documentation, you might not be as bad off as you feel.
Okay.
Right. That's what I was
No, that's helpful. So I have no problem going back to the table and going back to the journeyman process, gathering more documentation and submitting it to you guys for review. So
Well-
I think that's logical.
We'll look at it, but again, the requirement of the application is the hours. But here's what I recommend, this is not the board saying this, but my personal recommendation is, it's coming up on December, I would register him as an apprentice if
Okay.
I was in your position. That's what
Okay.
I would do.
Okay.
So just, because if this doesn't pan out, at least he can get that time in and do what he needs to do to move it
go ahead,
forward,
yep.
instead of delaying it longer than it already.
I mean, that's the other thing. The IEC training wouldn't even take effect till next fall. So we waste another 9 months. So,
Understood.
And again, I think that would really just be a waste of resources on everybody's part to prove that he has time and learn skills that he already possesses. But if that's the really sticking point, then we can go that route. So
Okay.
we'll take this back. We'll resubmit the journeyman application and go from there.
Okay.
Would
Right.
advanced,
I would suggest you evaluate what he's done. You know, if you've got documentation to a certain extent, if you can see it's nowhere close,
Mm-hmm.
don't hop through hoops to hop through hoops.
Mm-hmm.
and would advanced training, I mean, that would qualify as classroom?
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, if I would rather than spend Erie's money to send him to apprenticeship training, I'd rather send him to a UPS training school where I can get him continued education credits. I'd rather send him to a generator school where I can get those credits and still get some sort of payback for your insurance versus, you know, electrical theory 101
Right.
for the first year and the basics. So I think that's a better, if that's something that you guys are willing to accept, we can take that avenue, register him as apprentice, start to push for some of those schools.
Yeah, and I think the key is that it's registered with the NEC, right? So anything,
I'm not sure if they would be registered with the NEC necessarily, or I'm not sure of any schools that are
I'm
registered
sorry.
with the NEC.
I would defer that back to the electricians on this board, because I don't, That's not my area of expertise. If you want to talk about plumbing, we can talk about that. I'd have to defer that back to the electricians here to see if that's, I mean, I don't know what the rules are in that regard.
There's another, I think of this also is that, you know, say in 2 years or whatever, you decide that you want to change careers, and now you want to be a contractor. You know, you're gonna, you know, not work at Air Insurance anymore, you're gonna be a contractor. You know, I don't know how much residential work he does there, or, you know, services on houses and that type of thing, but in getting that license, that also allows him to cut loose and do that stuff that he may necessarily not have studied for in theory or know the code about, but yet it's given him a right to do it. And that's one of the things that I think about quite often.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, no, where the journeyman's license wouldn't allow that, and it would, you know, it would hold up that
But I'm
process.
just saying, you know, you may be an expert in your field as far as the commercial work and generators and UPS and that type of thing, but by getting that license, it also allows him to do all facets of electric work. And if he were to want to do a house or something residential, how much experience?
Again, I think that's where the exam comes into play, because it tests you on all facets. So that could go vice versa, where if you were a residential electrician for 20 years, went through an IEC school, come into this board and now say, well, I'm gonna go start doing commercial work, it's a big difference, you know, it's a whole different animal. So the electrical field is really broken into three groups, you know, residential, commercial, and industrial. So they all, depending where your experiences are, they overlap some, but the way a residential guy is gonna wire a three-way, a commercial guy it's gonna be
Well,
different.
but see, when we do our school, we have the X number of hours in each one of those, you know,
Sure.
so many hours residential, commercial, and, I mean, we've had people, trade contractors, you know, we had a guy that was commercial, and that's all they did, they'd work with a guy for a certain amount of time for another company perhaps, that does residential. So, I just think that's how it should be.
Sure. Okay, no, we'll take this back and we'll reapply, and if you guys, it sounds to me that the advanced schooling may be on the table. That might be a more beneficial thing for everybody. Is that something because I can pursue that right away, rather than wait on the IEC next fall.
Well, either way, you're gonna benefit from it, so
Good.
whether we consider it or not, he's gonna be more valuable to you.
To me, right, exactly.
So I wouldn't, you know, say the board's gonna say one way or the other whether we'll accept it, but at least that's something, you know, and it's gonna benefit you, so.
Sure.
It's not a bad idea,
Sure.
okay?
All right, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We already did.
Yeah.
Okay. There are no plumbing applications, there are no mechanical applications. I do see Christian sitting out there, he wasn't here for public comment. So if you folks want to come to the podium.
Thank you.
Just for the record, say your names, please.
Carrie Haynes,
Okay,
manager, Geiger Electric.
okay.
Christian Penninger.
Okay. So, we got a letter from you. It wasn't dated, but I imagined that you sent it recently.
It should be up on the top of the letter.
There's no date.
Oh geez, I apologize.
She sent it via email, so
I did do,
you have
Okay, okay.
yes,
And that was within the last, what, month?
3
or-
weeks.
last Tuesday.
Okay, okay. So,
Apologize about that.
in your letter, I understand that the owner, Chuck, passed away?
Yes,
Okay. And how long ago?
that was in April.
In April, okay. And so, you were given a 6 months extension for to
Yes,
take the masters? And where are you at, Christian? with that?
I'm working on that, taken it a couple times unsuccessfully.
Okay.
If I can ask a very specific question, you've taken it a couple of times. How many?
3 times.
And are you able to take it forth, or is
Yeah.
is there a period of time after 3 times you gotta take a duration off?
I'm able to take it a fourth time,
Okay. So you're scheduled to do that?
yes.
When is that?
End of December?
In December? Okay.
There was only one day available this month, and it was next Tuesday, and that was, I'd like to give them more time to prep.
We're just, the issue I'm having is, just trying to juggle the business, keep things going forward. Not looking for any handouts by any means, but I'm studying for the test. I just had a difficult time, obviously, passing the test. I'm not looking for, we're not asking for an extension with this license, so I can sit back and kick my feet up. I'm still studying, like I said, and, going after this. We just have some potential work in the future in the city that we would like to pursue, and so, just juggling quite a bit of things. It would just make life a lot easier if we were able to have that extension, and to still be able to work under that license and continue forward.
Yeah, I could see where having the owner pass away could create a hardship, because you're down the owner and you're trying to balance it.
Threw a bit of a curveball, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
How long have you been a journeyman?
About 15 years, 16 years, right in there. 15.
Registered with the city for that period of time?
Sorry, say that again?
Registered with the city of Erie
Yes,
that period of time?
yes.
And you served an apprenticeship?
Yes.
Prior to that, with the city, through the city of Erie? as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just trying to get some background.
Yep.
When was the first 6-month extension? When did that clock, what was it?
April.
April, when Karen contacted the code enforcement office to inform us of the passing, so we gave them 6
So it
months.
was done in October.
Yes.
Yeah, and just unfortunately, the first couple months,
Well,
he couldn't think. He's not gonna stop until he passes. It's just some of those questions.
Want to know about another 6-month extension?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not in
that's a
favor of another 6 month
Yeah, that goes up to a year, which is not fair to me.
Well, it's not fair, and no disrespect intended, but there's a reason why you have a master on board.
Right.
The work is all run through his expertise, his oversight. And again, no disrespect to you, but you don't have that credential.
You said the test was when?
December 27th.
Do you have any work going on in the city of Erie currently?
Yes.
Are you continuing to bid work in the city?
We would like to.
But are you? Have you?
Not with where we're at right now.
Okay.
How many active permits do you have out in the city?
2.
2.
One
Christie, I'm
commercial.
gonna ask a weird question, but if someone were to lose their master license, do they finish the permitted work and they're not allowed to take any new permitted work? Or does their ability to work in the city end that day that they lose their master license?
I couldn't answer that question for you. I know in the past, when we have suspended someone's license, we let them complete the work they already had open, but we wouldn't let them open any new jobs or pull any new permits.
Well, in light that you've already had 6 months, I'm just spitballing here, you've had 6 months. I would think that we would hold you accountable the same way we would anybody else and let you finish whatever work you have permitted. But until you get that license, no new work would be, if that's what we've done when we've penalized people, I don't know how you I'm trying to be fair.
Well,
I don't think we should extend it another 6 months.
how about we meet him halfway? Because he has the exam tested, or for his exam in December, so why don't we split the difference and give him 90-day extension to get his exam done?
Well, if he took the exam till the first of the year, if he's taking the test the 27th, he would know then. So I would say extend it to the first of the year.
Okay.
I was gonna be more hardline and say, you can't take any more permits until you pass your test.
I would agree with that. Finish the work you have, but not take any more permits out. I would agree with that. That's,
I mean, that's what I'm looking at. And that, if we were penalizing somebody, that's, I mean, you could finish the work you have permitted, but you can't secure any, doesn't stop you from bidding work, it just stops you from doing the work.
Right.
So don't bid anything that's gotta be done before Christmas. You're not gonna get that permit, but, I think that's the fairest way to do that. And it's kinda uncharted territory for us.
Well, there is the option to hire a master as well.
There's another opportunity.
yeah, we've gone down that road too.
And I think that there was a list provided to other contractors in need of a master for whatever reason.
Like, okay, a retired master, I was,
Yeah, we had
Okay.
a situation not long ago with a retired master for the company.
okay.
If you're looking for a motion on this, my motion would be that we allow them to finish the permitted work, but not give them the ability to get any other permitted work until he passes, or they get another master on record. I mean, we've got to maintain that integrity. So that would be my motion, is to, you finish what permitted work, but you no longer have a master license for securing new permits.
That's understood.
Yes.
Are you including to give them till the first of the year to,
I don't care when he gets his, he can't
Just for
draw a
the-
permit until he gets his
but
master.
for clarity, what I'm saying is they have to keep operating with what they're doing. So we have to keep Master 354 open until the first of the year, but he can't draw new permits, is what I'm saying. Because otherwise it can be interpreted as he doesn't have the masters, it's terminated as of now. You follow where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
So you're saying allow M354 to exist until January 1st?
That's what TJ's trying to make sure that is clear, that still exists. So that work is being done under a valid master license. And I'll do that with the carve out that you're not gonna get any more permits until
Correct.
you have your own master.
The one
or
permit.
a new.
The
sorry.
one permit we have pulled, I think will be finalized on Friday.
Yes.
We have Sam scheduled for an inspection on Friday. The other is,
What's it?
industrial, right, I'm just
Yeah,
explaining,
yeah,
that
okay.
one will be closed. We
Yeah.
only have one at PS Energy
One
on,
of the two that are open is going to be finalized.
Right.
The end of this week, so that'll be out of our hair.
Yeah, we're not trying to handcuff you, but we don't want you securing any more permits
Right.
without a
No.
valid master.
and that makes sense.
And we won't.
Christie, you were gonna say something?
So let's clarify your motion.
Okay, so. They can finish the work under the master, the current master. It'll remain open until that work is done, with the caveat that they cannot pull any more permits under that master license. That's all the motion has to say, right?
So the motion says master license 354 will be recognized sans permits until January 1st.
Does license 354 just follow Chuck, or will he get a new license number?
He'd get a new
That's why I didn't
license.
go down that road.
I'd get, it would be a different,
We would keep his current journeyman license number, but it would just be master status once he passes the
Oh,
exam.
okay.
Yeah.
But if you plan on doing,
Well,
before
I
we
guess
go
it's a
ahead.
moot point whether 354 stops or not, because they can't take any more permits out.
Yeah, but I think TJ's point is if 354 is shut down, who's doing the work? It's currently permitted under that master. That's why I was making
Oh.
it was convoluted, but I was allowing them to finish under 354. But they
Yes.
couldn't secure any additional further work under 354.
I would agree with that.
That would be my motion.
Continue working under 354, no new permits, and that would clean up anything that they had under Chuck's license.
And we don't need a duration on that, just they finish that work, those two jobs.
Well, one's done, you said next week.
One is done this Friday, the final inspection with Sam. The other, I would have to find out from another journeyman when that project's going to be completed.
That isn't gonna be like next April or anything.
No,
No.
no. Sam's already been to the site, has done a preliminary or partial.
You think that's too loose? Do you think we need duration in there?
No later than January 31st.
Okay, we'll have,
Does that work as a motion for you? Finish the
So-
work, no new work,
So-
duration to be not further than the end of the year or January 31st, 2024. Does that work for anybody?
That, it seems pretty clear to me.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Armstrong. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Ziwi. Is there any questions on the motion? Any questions on the motion? Being that there's none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, so moved. Christian, go get your license.
yes.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. That brings us to the most important part of this meeting, motion to adjourn. Is there-
Second.
I make the motion, and it's seconded by Mr. Collins. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. We'll see you next month. Thank you.